Sister.
We're going to have Sister Jean come up and lead us with prayer here.
Hello everyone, how are you tonight? Everybody pretty good? Well, if your day has been like mine, you're all probably tired. And yet, here you are, joining your neighbors in commitment and perseverance to bring about what is good for yourselves, your communities, and especially for our children. So, we're going to be a little easy on ourselves. We place ourselves at this moment in the compassionate heart of the giver of all good things, the giver of life. And we'll just rest there a little while, allowing God to hold us. God knows we are weary in many ways. So with the rhythm of your breathing, just be with God right now, who is fully present to you at all times. The goodness deep within you, lovingly holding you in life. Rest your heart on that powerful presence. And so we pray, good and gracious giver of life, we gather here again in your presence, grateful for every little positive movement that our community has experienced over this arduous journey of many, many months. You know we have to see some positive movement to keep us energized and hopeful. You know in our hearts we need good news of fair and just buyouts and progress towards removal of the deadly nuclear waste threat at West Lake. Help us to be strong, wise, and resolute with and for one another. We know that your Spirit is alive in each of our hearts. Show us the way to bring about what will best serve the common good. Giver of all good things, we place our hope and trust in you and in one another. Amen.
Thank you, Sister Jean. First of all, I want to point out that the League of Women Voters came out tonight, and if there's anyone that needs to register to vote or update your voting information, please go check with these ladies out here. We thank them for coming out tonight and getting people signed up to vote if you need to. We'd also like to thank the International Operating Engineers for always donating their time and their building and their dedication to us every month. And not only just the community group meetings here, but to the CAG meetings. And any time that we need to meet for whatever reason, Pat's always open arms and gets us in here and donates his time and stuff for us. So we really appreciate that. If we have any elected officials with us please stand and introduce yourself?
I'm Bill Otto, State Representative. Randy Hine, Councilman, Bridgeton, Ward 3.
Kurt Fetch, Councilman Bridgeton, Ward 3.
I'm Linda Heffrey, I'm with St. Louis County Councilman Steve Danger.
Thank you. Also with us tonight, we have the Franciscan Sisters of Mary. Dr. Mike Fulton with Patmos School District is here, and Matt Lemanchi with Patmos Fire District is here as well. Kim Baker with SS and Healthcare could not make it tonight, but sends their full support. St. Louis County Health is here as well. Anyone else out there that I don't know about? Okay. Do we have anybody here that this is their first meeting? Welcome.
Sorry.
We have a brief history up here that will tell you where and how we got to where we are with the landfill situation and the nuclear weapons waste in Missouri. I want to update you and let you know that our Facebook group has been very active in the past couple of weeks, and we are close to reaching 3,400 members. I want to talk a little bit about the Lois Gibbs event. I'm sure many of you have heard about. For those that do not know who Lois Gibbs, where she lies in all this, her involvement in environmental causes began in 1978 when she discovered that her 7-year-old son's elementary school in Niagara Falls was built on a toxic waste dump. Subsequent investigation revealed that her entire neighborhood, and you may know of the Love Canal, had been built on top of a dump. Lois organized her neighbors and formed the Love Canal Homeowners Association. She led her community in battle against the local, state, and federal governments. After years of struggle, 833 families were eventually evacuated and cleanup of Love Canal began. Her efforts also led to the creation of the United States Protection Agency's Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act, also known as CERCLA, or Superfund, which is used to locate and clean up toxic waste sites throughout the United States. I would like to point out that since that time, Lois has been successful in 120 buyouts where toxic waste has threatened families and businesses. She is an accomplished 2003 Nobel Peace Prize nominee that has been paying attention to our cause here about Westlake. On October 4th, she will be here for a free teach-in event. Registration will begin at 11 and the program will start at 12 p.m. sharp. Lunch will be provided. We have sign-up sheets in the back and I think in the front. You will need to RSVP for this event, and hopefully everyone can try to get out and make this. This is going to be very informational, and it's going to be a really, really good event. Let your friends and family members know, come out and try to be a part of this. In the past, we have been asking people to track symptoms and such in regards to the odor issue with the landfill. We have recently implemented a survey through SurveyMonkey. You can find this on the Facebook as well as on our website, and you can go in and fill it out on the website or on the Facebook page. Also, we have copies in the front and the back that you can fill out tonight, or you can take it with you and bring it back the next time, or get in touch with one of us moms and we can take that information from you. We have about 30 surveys filled out now, and we really want to try to hope to make 100 by the next time we meet. One last thing is the Credo petition on our Facebook page you might know about. This is a petition to Bill Gates about the horrible living conditions we endure here. In just a couple of weeks, it is now up to 889 signatures. This petition has been sponsored on the Credo website, and we are starting to see a lot of national attention to this issue. Keep sharing this. Keep sharing this. Can you make it your goal to share with 5 people every day? You can go on Facebook and you can tag 5 people, send them the petition, ask them to sign it, and do the same. Send it on Twitter, however you want to do it. Keep that moving. There's also copies of those petitions that you can fill out here and leave as well. So make sure that you stop at the back table to sign the petitions, the RSVP, the survey, and we'll get all that stuff entered or however we need to do it. We have the red bucket up here. As everybody knows, we occasionally pass that around to help with costs of running a meeting and independent samples of anything that we need to do to help keep this community safe. We also have in the front magnets and bumper stickers, and for every they're $1 a piece, and for every magnet or bumper sticker that you buy, we'll enter a ticket, and you have the chance to win a $15 Quick Trip gift card that we have right out here. So we'll be drawing for that before the meeting is over. Next up is Dawn.
This is how far we've come. We've got it up on the podium. Let me move out of the way here. It's really important that you see these listed accomplishments that the community and the CAG and everybody that lives here has done in the past year. Even though we had to cancel the Lois event, she still came in. I don't know how many of you knew that, and met with us and kind of did a little bit of the teaching with us, one-on-one time, what worked for her. Like Karen said, she's gone all over this country and helped people out that live in situations just like we're in now, and she's been successful. And she knows what works, what doesn't, the best way to communicate with the schools, the first responders and such. But the one thing she had us do is make a list of accomplishments, and we had a really hard time with this, believe it or not. Things move so fast with this, and as soon as we get one letter written by the congressionals, the very next day we're off trying to get something else. We never feel like we have time to just kind of step back and look and see in the past year and a half everything that's happened. And I know a lot of you are very frustrated, especially those of you that live right on top of this landfill. It's important for you guys to see that your emails and stuff, you've really made some amazing things happen. And as we started making this list, there were times when Lois was like, stop right there. Do you guys even realize you had 2 congressional letters written? She's like, that never happens. You can't get Congress to do anything together right now. Much less write 2 letters on behalf of the community. So for those of you that are frustrated that there hasn't been movement, there has been, but it has been really slow, and it's been really hard to get there. But this is just to show you guys that every email you write, every phone call you make, it does make a difference. One interesting thing I learned actually from State Representative Bill Addo, which I thought was very interesting, and then I asked another elected official, and they agreed. They said, it takes very few phone calls from constituents to get their attention. If they get 1 or 2 phone calls, they assume that there's at least 20 or 30 people that feel the same way, but don't have it in them to, don't feel comfortable calling. Same thing with emails. So when these people get 10 phone calls on an issue, that's a big deal to them. They sit up, they pay attention. And, I think a lot of times we get really frustrated because we think it's going to take 300 phone calls to see something happen, and that's just not the case. Really, it takes 10. So if you guys are on the Facebook page and you see us ask for, email Senator McCaskill, email Senator Blunt, if you guys could even just send 1 line, just say, Senator, I'm a resident of Spanish Village, I couldn't open my windows last night, this is ridiculous, what are you going to do about it? I mean, it's, you don't have to go unless you feel comfortable into a really detailed printout of that. So, that's that. Before I get into the Attorney General, we never talk politics here. We always straddle the line, Democrat, Republican, Independent. We acknowledge people that have helped this community out. The one thing that we do find ourselves having to do, though, is call out people that actually take a swing at this group. We have to say when somebody has actually chosen to step out. You know, it's one thing to support us, and it's one thing not to support us. There's plenty of other issues, education, whatnot, Ferguson. But when you actually take a platform to swing at this group, at this community, and everything that the people who live on top of this landfill in Spanish Village are going to, you've crossed the line into something else. Many of you, some people have reported that a survey is going around by one of the 70th House District candidates. Bill Otto is the 70th House District Democrat. So I'll let you fill in the blank who the other candidate is. But the first question on that survey, besides, are you over 18, can you vote, is, did you know that Bill Otto supports extremist, what was the word? Radical environmental groups that are calling for the removal of the radioactive waste from West Lake Landfill. And did you know that it's 10 times, it will go through our neighborhoods and it's 10 times more dangerous to remove it? That is the first question on this survey. And that comes directly from you know where, for public services. That's what the Coalition to Keep Them Safe is saying, and I'm sorry, that's horrible. To call the people in this room radical environmentalists, and frankly, even their number, 10 times more dangerous, they don't know that. That's a made-up number. If they don't want it removed, I have no problem with that, but don't call us names and don't quote false facts. We're fighting EPA hard enough for that. So, even the fact that you guys are in this room right now, just to let you know, this company's taken a pretty hard swing and they're playing dirty politics now. So they've stepped up, and it's probably because of what I'm about to tell you with the meeting with Attorney General Koster. This meeting, it was postponed once because of Ferguson, and then he met us up here. And I gotta tell you, some of us have been in on meetings before. I've never met one-on-one with him, but it was kind of like a clown car. All these lawyers started walking in, and it was like, okay, how many can fit in this conference room? It really was, and we were kind of like, huh? He brought his entire litigation team. Chuck and Kathy were there, Ferd Fetch was there, Dr. Fulton was there, and I gotta tell you, this was probably the most candid conversation that I have had with any of these state agencies. And if you guys don't think that there's a serious issue going on at this landfill, you're mistaken. Your Attorney General is extremely worried, and he is fighting very, very hard, which means that this company is not playing ball. They're not. They're making him fight them and take them to court for every little piece of information that we need, that our first responders need, that St. Louis County needs in order to keep us safe. His entire team was there. They answered our questions. And they were very candid about the struggle. They said, this is a struggle. And then they went into some details about the barrier, which you're going to hear tonight. Ed Smith's going to present a little bit on this. We've got an extremely complicated situation, people. And it's a very dangerous situation, and they're worried. There is cause for concern. And, you know, it makes me feel good to see all of you in the room, because I think a lot of you have been asking, why isn't DNR out here? Why can't they come out and talk to us about the fire? And I have to tell you, that was many people brought that up at the meeting. The reason is because the state of Missouri is suing Republic Services, meaning they are going to go to court. And any state employee that gets up and talks about it from DNR, they're subject. You get them up in a public meeting and you get people from Republic sitting in the back, there's one here tonight, and they say one wrong thing and they can throw the court case. And that's really sad. That's really sad that this company is preventing us from getting the knowledge we need from our state agency. But that's the bottom line. He's fighting very hard behind the scenes on our behalf, but it could throw the court case, and that's not what we want. So their hands are tied. He said wonderful things about Pattonville Fire Department, and he encouraged us. They fixed the website. If you guys have been on the DNR website recently, that's been fixed and updated a little bit. The one good thing I will tell you is we do have St. Louis County here tonight, and these are some of the people that are in on the meetings, and they can kind of help us understand what's going on. But other than that, these meetings that we hold here are to go over some of those documents. This is the most recent, well, I won't say the most recent, it's been a long time since we met. This is probably one of the biggest things to come out. This was the end of July 31st, is it 31st? July 31st, I believe this came out, and what's happened is the leachate from this landfill fire, it's a fire, has seeped into the groundwater, and the groundwater is leaking off-site. Am I correct with that? I mean, that's what's going on. And they've been cited for it. They've been cited for having benzene and leachate and whatnot off-site. But this is a big deal to us because all along, EPA's been saying that nothing can migrate into the groundwater. There can be no radiation, and that's not what we're seeing in these reports. It's very important that we all be on the lookout for the USGS report. They are tasked by EPA with examining the groundwater at this site. That report should be out. I don't even think it's at EPA at this point, is it? We've got confirmation that it hasn't even been given to EPA, but once it does, we should be able to FOIA it. But that's where we need to be concerned about the fire, we need to be concerned about the radiation, but we need to never forget about the groundwater. The groundwater at this site is very, very important. I'm going to let Ed Smith talk about this. This is yours.
Hello everybody, my name is Ed Smith. I work for the Missouri Coalition for the Environment. Most of you know me. I'm a radical environmental extremist, and this is what one looks like. We care about things like clean water, air, healthy food, things like that. So, one thing that we've noticed for a while is that there's been some lack in communication sometimes between EPA and DNR and trying to figure out who's in charge of doing what, because this is a very complex site. The state of Missouri is in charge of the smoldering fire side, while the federal government, the EPA, is in charge of the radioactive material. There was Attorney General that sued Public Services, and that's why we had this isolation barrier that might be installed that came out of the state, but now we've got the federal government, the EPA, they're the ones in charge of implementing it and overseeing it. And so DNR has been writing comments on this isolation barrier to Republic Services and the EPA. And this is a letter from the EPA to Republic Services saying, don't worry about DNR's comments. Some of them have already been covered, and you don't really need to listen to them, which is interesting because the landfill is still sanctioned, parts of it under DNR, and so to move trash from one part of the landfill to the other, Republic Service needs permits, so just a little frustrating there. In August, that's 2 weeks ago now, we received two pretty interesting pieces of information about what's going on in the landfill. The first one was from Todd Valhammer. I think that's Wonderman's last name. He's been hired by the state of Missouri, landfill fire specialist, civil engineer, I believe. He's been working with the state for a long time, made some interesting claims about what's going on. So just so people are oriented, this is the area of the part of the landfill. This is one of two radioactive areas. There's actually less radioactivity in volume and in how hot it is in this part of the landfill. There's actually more closer to the Missouri River. Anyway, radioactive material is in here. The isolation barrier is probably going to be put in somewhere around here. This is the North Quarry. This is what has been known as the neck of the landfill, and down here is the South Quarry that's currently smoldering fire. So this right here is a close-up. This is the neck of the landfill. And a little over a year ago or so, the landfill company installed what's called gas interceptor wells. They're meant to stop the smoldering fire from moving through this neck into the North Quarry. 2 landfill fires are worse than 1, period. But then it's also closer to the radioactive material that moves into the North Quarry. So these lines are meant to stop that smoldering fire. Right here, I added those red lines so you could get an idea of what it looked like. Tom Downhammer reported that in gas extraction well 109 that they noticed a 73% increase in the carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide can be an indication of a smoldering fire in a landfill. Temperature increased from 107 to 139 in a month. And it's worthy of noting that because this is on the north side of the neck and along the gas interceptor well fence to stop the smoldering fire. Back a year ago, when the state was still in charge of this contingency plan, including the isolation barrier, where public service used 3,000 parts per million, which is above the industry standard for a red flag to smoldering fire, to use as one of its triggers in negotiating with the DNR and the Attorney General. And we can see that we're up to 2,600 in this gas extraction well. So we're getting really close to the number that Republic Services wanted to use a year ago for a trigger. Again, this is the gas extraction well 54, just north of the gas interceptor well to stop the smoldering fire. Significant increase in temperature, hydrogen increased, and the CO increased rapidly as well. So Top Downhammer thought, his conclusion was that the smoldering fire is at or maybe just past the gas interceptor wells. It's still in the neck of the landfill. He needs more information. There were several, these are areas that are warm in the neck. These are the gas extraction wells, gas interceptor wells right here. So you can just see that it's pretty hot there underground. 160, 185, 190 degrees. So Todd made some suggestions. Wants more information from Republic Services about data that helps people that are smarter than me understand what's going on in smoldering landfill fires. And those are his recommendations. Here's more of his recommendations. You can find this on DNR's website. The one thing that you did see after this memo came out is that Republic Services was very critical of Todd Downhammer, saying he doesn't have all the information he needs. The smoldering fire is contained. It's not moving north. Well, Republic Services is the one that holds this data, and if they feel that it's contained and the fire is not moving north, then they ought to be able to give it to DNR without any issue and have Todd Downhammer make an informed decision when it comes to these memos based on the limited data that he is getting from Republic Services. So it's kind of rude, if you ask me, to criticize the guy who's hired by the state to make an independent assessment of what's going on based on limited data that the landfill company's not giving them. And so the day before, I believe this came out, we got an update from the Army Corps of Engineers, which is overseeing some of the technical issues with this isolation barrier. And just a few quick notes here. They did a review of 3 alignments. Again, here's kind of a map, the South Quarry, neck, North Quarry, kind of estimated area of radioactive material. The EPA and Public Services have found more radioactivity kind of around here outside of their previous estimate, which is why they've been running into some time delays and issues. Anyway, so alignment 1 is located inside operable unit 1. That's one of those 2 areas of radioactivity. The other one is right here. Again, that one has more radioactivity and more quantity of it. Both of them unaligned in the floodplain. So alignment 2, they ruled out pretty quickly. Alignment 3 kind of goes into the North Quarry. And so far, what we believe is that would mean that most of the radioactive material is on the north side of that isolation barrier. Alignment 1 would go straight through the radioactivity that was found, meaning that there would be radioactive material on the south side of the isolation barrier. Should a smoldering fire move into the north quarry, that would not be protected by the isolation barrier. This is back from 2013. What we haven't seen is a map of the 3 alignments. So our organization, we often file Freedom of Information Act requests with the EPA. This was one of them. Is what are the alignments the Corps of Engineers use to write this 20-page document? So this is one of those alignments from last year. Here's again the neck of the landfill, outline of the suspected radioactive material. And this is where Public Services and EPA found unexpected radioactivity up there. I encourage you to go on the Facebook page, EPA's website. You can read the Corps' explanation of these 3 alignments, their advantages, their disadvantages, different problems associated with each of those. Like if you leave radioactivity south of the barrier, what are you going to do with it? Because you're going to have to either remove it. They called for like stabilization in place, I believe. So here's just a little more detail. Sorry I'm rambling. Got a PowerPoint for a reason. So 40 feet long, 50,000 cubic yards removed for alignment 1. Alignment 30, 40 to 80 feet deep. It gets deeper because that's in the north quarry. More volume removed. And these will not start alignment 1 or alignment 3 between 14 to 18 months. That's not from when it's going to be start to finish. This is from start to start. This is when from the planning to the beginning of construction. And there's possibility that you could streamline that a little bit, but the Corps was very certain to make sure that you do not rush this project because you could mess it up. Just more details. Again, I already kind of went through this radioactivity on one side or the other based on which one you chose. Okay. Yeah.
If you can go back to frame, right there, by the excavation up there, assuming you would want to put a barrier in, you would use that to enclose the affected area? Is that safe to assume then that whatever material that's there is less than 100 feet depth?
Yes. There's a map that I actually did not include in here that is kind of like looking at the landfill from the side. The quarries go down about 200 plus feet deep, and then they start to kind of stair step as you move towards the radioactivity. So yeah, the bedrock, what have you, slowly moves up, like a ladder.
But it's not to enclose it. It's simply the equivalent of putting in a fence. It does not enclose it, it does not encapsulate it, it does not protect it from the groundwater. All it is putting in a non-burnable fence between the radioactive waste and the part of the landfill where the subsurface smoldering event is. And just to put this into perspective, a standard dump truck that you see on the roads today holds somewhere between 7 and 9 cubic yards of material, and one has 95,000 cubic yards. So there's a lot of material that has to be moved in order just to put a fence in, not to mention the amount of radioactivity that's to the north of that fence, or radioactive material is.
Okay, but the material itself is well below that depth. That's just a...
No, the material is actually on the surface in some of the areas. The radioactive material, especially in, you hear us talking a lot about Area 1 because that's adjacent to the existing landfill. There's an Area 2 that's also on the same site, that's on the other side of the access road that they use today. There's a lot of radioactivity literally at the surface, radioactive material at the surface on that site. That's actually hotter than the area that's threatened by the fire.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks, Artie. All right, so again, alignment 1, less chance of a smoldering fire on that side in the future. if you went with that route, because if you went farther south and used line 3, you would have newer municipal solid waste on the north side of that barrier, more susceptible to becoming a smoldering fire. According to this is not according to me, this is according to the Corps of Engineers. So what do you do with the radioactivity south of the barrier? Well, they say the best way to prevent a smoldering fire from contacting rim is to excavate it. We happen to agree with that. We think that all the radioactivity, or as much as possible, should be excavated due to smoldering fires and other problems associated with having illegally dumped radioactivity in a landfill unlined in the river floodplain.
I'm really sorry to interrupt, since I already interrupted you. I just can't resist. Does that mean that the Corps of Engineers, they prepared that statement?
Yeah.
Does that mean the Corps of Engineers are radical environmentalists?
No. What the Corps is recognizing is that everything here is difficult. There's a lot of tough choices that need to be made, and nothing's going to be easy. There are issues related to removing radioactivity, but if you do it in a planned, safe, dedicated way, it's going to be much safer for the community having it released without humans being in charge of it, whether it be a smoldering fire, earthquake, tornado, whatever, or doing it on the fly because a smoldering fire has reached the North Quarry. So they one of the possibilities is leaving it there, mixing it with cement. There's no effects on a smoldering fire with stabilized rim. I don't really know if that's called, no, I wouldn't call that stabilized, or unknown. I added this fact right here, is that the St. Louis Foods Wrap, the branch of the Army Corps of Engineers cleaning up all the other radioactive waste in St. Louis, has a 100% safety record when it comes to removing and transporting radioactive material. You're going to hear a lot of our opponents saying that this is really dangerous, it can't be done. Well, it is being done right now at other sites in St. Louis County and St. Louis City. Here's some other options again. I know you guys want to hear not from me, so you can find this in the Army Corps of Engineers document, and I will hand it off from there. Thank you.
Okay, well, I know a lot of you guys are here to hear from St. Louis County tonight. I want to introduce Matt Levanchi and, I don't want to say most importantly, but Mr.Diedrich. He is tasked with basically protecting you in the event that something happens up here. He's tasked with, in St. Louis County, coming up with an emergency plan for what you will do depending on different scenarios. This will not be the last time he's at a meeting. This will not be the last time, there's an open relationship starting. I don't know how many of you were at the CAG when Mike Smiley presented. Mike Smiley resigned, so it's been, retired, 3 weeks? 4 weeks? Roughly about 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Mark now has the honor of having that position. And I want to have him come up here and talk a little bit. He can talk to you guys a little bit about how closely he works with Pattonville Fire, but we're really excited to have him. I should mention real quick too, if you guys want to scoot up, well, you can stand up here, it's fine. If you guys want to scoot up, we're going to it's going to be kind of a little bit of a work session here with him when he talks. If you guys have questions, opinions, again, this is not the last time he will be here. There is the ability, and he'll talk to you more about that for community involvement. But any concerns, any questions, we're going to go ahead and write them down on this piece of paper so that the thoughts, whatever you guys think, is written down, and then we can revisit it at a later meeting.
Thanks, Tom. As Dawn said, my name is Mr.Diedrich, and I am the Director of Emergency Management for St. Louis County. And as she also said, just actually less than a month now that I've had that position. However, I've worked in emergency management in the office for 17 years, so I'm very familiar with it. And I'm very familiar with this issue. And it's one of probably the top issues that we are dealing with. As a matter of fact, I will tell you 2 things about the day I interviewed for the position. Before I walked into the interview, the last person I talked to was Matt. And the reason was not because I needed Matt's encouragement for the interview was because earlier that day I heard on the radio about Todd's report that had come out and the way what I heard about it concerns me. So I gave Matt a call to check in on that. After that, I walked into my interview, and I think it was the third question they asked me was, how familiar are you with the West Lake Landfill? And I mentioned that for a couple of reasons, to show you that A, we are paying attention to it, and B, we are very concerned about it. I will say also along with that, my job, my office's job, is not to clean this up. That's not what we do. I wish it was, and I wish we had that authority. I wish we could do. I wish I had a magic wand to make it go away, as I'm sure many of you do too. But that's not what we do. What we do is we help prepare St. Louis County to plan for, recover from, and respond to disasters. And this didn't fit the definition of a disaster. I don't know what would. So that's really why I'm here. You also see on the screen the LEPC, Local Emergency Planning Committee. I am also, due to my position, also the chair of the LEPC. It just so happens that Matt Comanche is the vice chair of the LEPC. Which, by the way, just happened at the last meeting. He was voted by the members to become the vice chair. So he's been a member for about 2, maybe 3 years now, I think. So we're very familiar with this, and we talk about it on a regular basis, and we are very concerned about it. Another little fact about the LEPC, how and why an LEPC was created. It all comes from Love Canal. And not only CERCLA, but also EPCA, which is Emergency Planning, some other words in that acronym that escape me right now, because I'm supposed to be remembering it. But it states that every community, every county must have an LEPC. Some counties, and you get into a rural jurisdiction, and you may have 2 or 3 counties that come together for an LEPC. The LEPC's job is education on hazardous materials, response, and training. That's what we do. So one of the things that actually we've done at the LEPC, and I brought a couple with me, unfortunately I don't have enough for everybody, but we will get these out to anybody that wants them. We actually printed this brochure on shelter in place. We just got them in, but we've been working on it for several years. And we didn't do it with this issue in mind. We did it with any chemical issue in mind. But it certainly falls right into place with what we're talking about here with this landfill. Another thing that I brought with me that I want to show you is a calendar that Ameren puts out in Callaway County. I reference their nuclear facility there. And it has a lot of information here about shelter in place, about the dangers, it has helpful numbers, all those sorts of things. This is something that on Tuesday, you see our next meeting is this Tuesday, I'm going to put together an ad hoc committee to take that information and other sources that we have, and put together some sort of community information for anybody who wants it. It may be a calendar, maybe something else. I don't know exactly what form it's going to take yet. But to get this information to folks who want it and folks who need it. The other thing that I'm going to do that I want to kind of kick off, and as Dawn said, I told her earlier, this is not a one and done deal. I'm not coming here tonight talking to you, checking a box, and you'll never see me again. You're going to see me quite a bit over the next, hopefully just a few months. Hopefully we have a resolution to this. I'm not quite that optimistic, but over the time that we're together, I'm going to be here. And what I'm going to also ask from this ad hoc committee at the LEPC is to put together a program that we can present to you all to really describe what shelter in place means. If you saw any of the media reports about this meeting over the last couple of days, I've done like 3 or 4 interviews in the last 24 hours specifically about this meeting. I spent a lot of time in those interviews trying to convince the reporters that what I want to talk about is shelter in place, not evacuation. But so far, everything I've read, the headline has been evacuation. So I want to touch on that for a second. How many of you remember the power outage that we had in July of 2006? How many of you were affected by that? Lost power. It was a bad couple of weeks, wasn't it? It was for me too. One of the lessons that we learned from that was we had a lot of nursing homes that lost power and moved people. They moved them to another location. And two things happened there. One, the hospital system almost collapsed in St. Louis because when you call for an ambulance, where does that ambulance take you? The hospital, right? They're kind of like pre-programmed. That's the only place they know to go. So when the nursing home called the fire department and said, we got all these people, we need to move them out, the fire department showed up with their ambulances and they took them all to the hospital. And the hospital started saying, wait, these people don't need to be in a hospital. And we came very close to actually collapsing the entire system because we had overloaded it. We'd done it wrong. The other thing that we learned was, I can't tell you how many times I heard this story afterwards. Nursing home administrators told me they got the last patient on an ambulance or on a bus or however they were moving them to move to their other location, and they turned around and walked back in, and as they did, the power came back on. So we worked through a lot of those issues, and I can tell you from that experience, I do not believe in moving people, evacuating people, unless it's absolutely the last resort. I don't want anybody leaving their home unless we have no other choice. The best choice is to shelter in place for a lot of these emergencies. Okay, stay there until we can figure out what's going on, or we can figure out a better place to put you if we have to do that. If we just immediately evacuate, let's think about this for a second. If, let's say it's a worst case scenario and the fire reaches the radioactive material, we have a plume with radioactive material flying through the air and landing in the area. Do we really want to take people out of their home and put them into that dangerous situation? Not at all. Okay, that's not what I want to do. So I really want to emphasize that you're going to hear a lot from us over the next few months talking about shelter in place, exactly how that works, exactly how we'll do that. The other thing that I want to mention is I know many of you are very curious about the plan that we've put together for this particular event. And the plan that we put together, which on Monday, hopefully I'll be able to take the word draft off of it, as soon as the committee takes a look at it and approves it, that plan is not for you specifically. And if I were to hand you that plan, whether it was tonight and it still said draft on it, or sometime next week when there isn't a draft, that's the actual plan, it's really not going to tell you a whole lot. Because what the plan is for first responders to come in and help you with the shelter in place, or, again, worst case scenario, the evacuation. What we are going to do over the next couple of months, we're going to put this program together, is we're going to teach you what it means to shelter in place. Because it sounds relatively easy, doesn't it? Stay inside. That's where the easy part stops and the hard part starts. Okay, there's a lot more that goes into it. How much food do you have? What about medication? What are you going to do with the kids? A whole lot, a host of things that I'm not going to go into tonight because we'd be here all night, we don't have the time. But we're going to put this program together, and we're also going to come up with, for lack of a better term, a map with zones on it. Because, and again, I can't stress this enough, if this situation happens, there's going to be a situation where we have to look at what the weather conditions are, which way the wind's blowing. There may be some areas that are not affected at all, and there may be other areas that are affected. And if we come up with a map that you all have, that we put maybe in this calendar or some other type of information that goes out to you, and I'm just making this number up, this is not going to be one, if we say that there's a zone 1A, and zone 1A needs to shelter in place, and you can look at your refrigerator magnet or your calendar or whatever it is that we have, and say, I live in zone 1A, I need to shelter in place, and I can turn to the calendar where it tells me what I need to do to shelter in place, and hopefully you've done the other other steps to prepare for that. So those are the kind of things that we're going to be working on, and I'm going to set a goal for us to come back in January to present this to you, because it is going to take us a little time to put all this information together. But I promise you that we are going to work very hard on it, and we have been working very hard on it for actually probably about close to the last year and a half or 2 years. I'll open it up for questions now, if anybody has anything for me.
I have a question. We're
Yes.
in Spanish Village right on top of that, and you're gonna tell us to stay there in place with all this stuff and the thing? I mean, that really says there really isn't any plan in place. We've been waiting for years for some kind of plan, and you're telling us to stay home? I think we've dropped the ball here. I think you've dropped the ball and don't understand how close we are to that. We have nothing. You all are gonna have suits, breathing apparatus, and we're gonna stay in our houses and try to keep radiation and chemicals out? I don't think this is a plan at all, and I don't mind saying it.
Okay, and I appreciate your position, but I'm just going to answer this with a question. I'm not trying to be flippant or anything. I'm trying to get information so that I can assist. If you don't feel that that's a good plan, and that's fine, what would be an option that you would think of? And I know you're not an expert in it, so I don't.
I'm not, but we've asked for years, and it's always been placed on, we want another exit out of Spanish Village and the trailer park. We got one way in, one way out. Everybody, it's gotta be somebody's problem. And they always say, well, it's Bridgeton, we sent it to Bridgeton. Well, we don't have the funds, we're not gonna do this. If you've got emergency vehicles coming in and we're trying to get out, it's not gonna work. Yep.
Okay, I believe you brought that question up when my predecessor was here at the CAG meeting, and I know we looked into that. And my understanding is that road is Bridgeton, not county highway, because we checked with county highway. So, you know, that's all I know.
We get every time, it's not our problem. Everybody.
Well, I'm not saying it's not a problem, I'm just telling you who owns the road and who would have to make another entrance to go in or out. It'd be, and I don't know what Bridgeton calls it, highways and traffic or roads or what that department is. Yes, sir.
Even with that, you know, and being a great point, with the one entrance and exit route, we can time delay for you guys to get word in Baldwin or whatever, if there's been an incident. For those of us in Terrace Lawn, we look at the door, we're gonna see a cloud before you guys even have a clue. And I guarantee you, I'm not sheltering in place. I'll be in the car when it gets gone.
And that's absolutely your option. I'm not telling you you can't. As a matter of fact, if we were to get to a point where we quote unquote ordered an evacuation, I can't send anybody in to pull you out of your home. If you want to stay, you have that right to stay. You also have that right to leave if we advise you to shelter in place. And I'll also tell you that how I'm going to get the information that there's something going on is going to come from Capitol Fire. They're going to be the first responders on the scene. And they're going to call immediately to me. And we're going to activate the plan. And we'll get the word out.
Okay, Martin, if I can say something. What I was thinking more so than I guess in that respect was that, like you mentioned, one entrance, one exit. When I think, you know, emergency plan put into place, I'm in consideration of, okay, you've got officers out directing traffic, shutting anything coming into the area to prevent additional exposure, as well as providing an immediate means for exiting for those residents who wish to do so.
Right. And that would be Bridgeton Police that would be doing that.
Okay, so they wouldn't be involved in a plan or coordinated as such?
Yes, they would.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Real quick. I just want to talk real quick about this evacuation shelter in place. I think we're getting too much down in the weeds on this. The data that we get month to month, and then once temperatures hit certain levels, there's requirements that are being enforced by the legal system. Because because of the lawsuits that Dawn talked about. Let me turn around so I don't trip myself. We will know when an issue, like we talk about, that requires an evacuation or a shelter-in-place possibility, we'll know when that's going to happen. There's not anything up in that landfill that all of a sudden this smoldering event is going to get to and blow up and cause a nuclear waste fallout situation. What I've said all along as the fire department is we don't want to get to a point where the smoldering event hits radiological material, causes an issue because of the infrastructure that's there is not designed to keep radiological material in place, because the gas wells that they have, the way they suck the gas out of there, if there's radioactive material in there, it's going to go through their flare system and it's going to be released into the atmosphere, because the flare system will not burn up radioactive material. So I think we're really too much down in the weeds on this. This isn't something that's going to happen tonight. When we're in a situation where we know, because we're getting the data from the increased temperatures in the wells, we're getting the air monitoring data, this isn't going to be something that where you get a call or the fire department drives through your subdivision with its intercom system going saying evacuate your homes or shelter in place. We're going to know weeks in advance because of the lawsuits that are there. Now, a year or two ago, not necessarily the case because we didn't have those lawsuits there. We didn't have a whole lot of information. But when I'm talking about getting data, you know, when a well hits a certain temperature, I think it's 165 degrees at this point, it automatically kicks in this lawsuit that says Republic Services will provide the fire department, Todd Dalhammer, the DNR, the information so we can analyze that data and understand exactly where those wells are and what the temperatures are and if that smoldering event is in that area. Now, we're not at that point right now because, as Todd's report says, that he believes that the smoldering event is still in the neck area of the quarry. There's no indication that it's in the north quarry. We talked about that at the CAG. But this isn't something that's going to just happen overnight or in the next couple of days. You're going to have warning not only from DNR but from the fire department, to the point that if somebody, we feel that smoldering event has made its way or is making its way to where an impending collision with radioactive material is going to happen, you're going to have time to leave. You're going to have time to pack up your stuff, get your medicines together. You're going to have time to go somewhere. The question is, when can you come back? Honestly, that's what it's really going to boil down to. But that's how I see this coming down the pipe. It's not a matter of it's going to be within, you have 12 hours to get out and we're telling you to evacuate. And I know that's what you guys have been asking for, but in some of that, you have to understand that you're also responsible for yourself. Like Mark says, we will help you learn the ways to prepare for a disaster. How much water you need, how much food you need, how many days of medicines you might need if you're required to shelter in place. But when it all boils down to, we are going to have some type of warning that this event has moved to a spot where we don't think it's any longer safe for you to be in that situation, that either you can shelter in place, because like you said, we can't force you to leave, or you have a warning that you pack up your stuff and find another place to go.
What about a surface fire?
Right.
I think maybe, they might be thinking that.
Yeah,
What happens if a fire comes?
We had a surface fire. We had a surface fire last February, I think it was, and I'll be honest with you, that was a scary day for me. I did not like driving from downtown St. Louis to Bridgeton, not knowing what was going on. Because of all the possibilities that are out there, we always talk about, there's 1,000 different things that could go wrong with this, but we're prepared for those things. And this is just one of those many issues that could go wrong. The surface fire that we had was in an area where we know the fire is contained. And, I don't necessarily agree with the Republic statement that says that this is a managed situation. I mean, we respond to fires all the time, and we can place them under control, but they're still burning. They're not managed. Many times they flare back up. There's other things that come into play with that, and, we're to a point, and Mark will tell you this, he's with the county police, but there's been many times in stories he's heard of a fire that gets put under control, and the fire department leaves, and 2 hours later, they're back with even more trucks because it's rekindled and fired back up. So we're prepared for those type of situations. And the thing you have to keep in mind with the surface fires is going to occur in an area that we already know there's a fire underground. And that's what it's not like it wormholes for 2,000 yards and then pops its head up somewhere else. The reason we know that is because the data we get on the CO, the temperatures, the things like that. So that's not a possibility that is what's going to happen. Anywhere we have a surface fire, the potential for a surface fire is going to be in an area that's already affected by the subsurface smoldering event or underground fire. Does that answer that question? Yeah, just go ahead. Then I'll get you next, sir.
Do you have
You talked a lot about the emergency shelter. That sounds like something, a temporary thing. But we've had a fire going for a long, long time, and if this fire gets into the nuclear area, it would probably be a long, long time. So these people couldn't just go to a shelter. You're talking about taking the whole city out, or part of the city out, or what are we talking about here?
Yeah, we haven't crossed that bridge yet, and that's one of the things that Mark hit on it. We don't want to cross that bridge. We don't know. I wish I could tell you that if it happened and XYZ came together, that you're going to be out of your home for 2 weeks. But I can't tell you that because, you know, the big thing is to not allow it to happen at all. That's why we go to the meetings. That's why we fight with this company. That's why we meet with the Attorney General. That's why we write the letters to the Congress people that we do. We don't want this to happen. Nobody wants this to happen. The problem that we have is there's not much movement in any direction to keep it from happening. And, you know, when I brought up last month at the CAG meeting that, you know, where we feel the fire is located, and it was reported to me that all options are back on the table, you know, with some of the things. I honestly believe, and this is not me being optimistic about the landfill, because there's nothing optimistic about that landfill. I honestly believe that the people that are in charge that can pull the trigger to get something done if the event came where that smoldering event gets to the radiological material, they'll do everything that they can to keep it from happening. But the thing you have to keep in mind is the barrier wall, and I support the barrier wall. I still do. I just don't see a whole lot of movement on it. That's a plan that was devised by the company that owns the landfill.
Sure.
That's the problem. I support it. If there was another option on the table that happens quicker and sooner than 14 months, 18 months, that guarantees that the fire is not going to hit the smoldering event's not going to hit the radiological material, I'm on board with that. But that's the only thing that's on the table right now. If we see where the smoldering event moves beyond the interceptor wells and into the north quarry, it's almost like going from DEFCON 4 to DEFCON 3. There's going to have to be more things to happen. It's going to have to be, it'll be forced. I think you'll see more people at this community meeting, and hopefully with, you know, knowing people and being a part of St. Louis County, there'll be more pressure on that company to do something other than what they've already done. Right now, there's no indication that the fire is in the North Quarry. We get a new round of data next week is proposed. We'll see what that says, and if it says what Todd was speculating, that's not good, but we'll deal with it. It also brings to bear that the pressure on, you know, the folks that stood up in this room and introduced themselves as a politician, and Lou Abusi is now here, who represents Congressman Clay's office, there's going to be a lot more pressure on them to do something. Like Mark said, he's part of St. Louis County. He can't make this go away. Pattonville Fire District cannot make this go away. But we can be at every meeting that we're able to be at, and believe me, both of us have attended as many meetings as we've been allowed to be in, and that's a key fact. That's a key statement. As many meetings as we've been allowed to be in, and when we're there, we fight for this community. And it's that simple. And it's not just this community; it's the entire county. Because like Mark said, depending on what way the wind is blowing that day, it affects either North County or South County or West County. You know, St. Charles, they're involved in this plan that we're working with, and they have been involved with it from day one. So my hat's off to Mark, because even though his predecessor was in charge when this happened, Mark's been doing all the work because he's capable of doing the work, number one. And Mike Smiley, the guy that was in that position before him, recognized that. So, you know, Mark's the one that has drawn up all these documents, the 20-something pages that's there. It's all his work, and I support what he's doing. It's a matter of education, of understanding, and I'm not saying that shelter in place is the ultimate answer. But like I said many times in this specific meeting, when you start talking about evacuation, and like I said, I don't see that happening, that it's going to be an emergency situation. But when you start talking about evacuation, you have to start looking at what's going to happen when you pull that trigger. And it's not just as easy as getting your stuff and getting in your car and driving away. The people that are under medical care, hospital, nursing homes, we're going to have loss of life. And it's possible we'll have more loss of life with evacuation than we would with having a radiological event. And that's the thing that we don't want to do. We don't want to cause unnecessary harm to those that we don't have to. But that call will be made by somebody like me with the hazmat team if that ever happens. And I wish I could tell you that there's a playbook that we have, that this is how it goes. We don't have it because we don't know what all the possibilities are.
Question regarding your data. How can we be sure, and how sure are you about the veracity of the data that Republic is allowing you to have? That is my concern, Mr. Diedrich. If they're being so selective on what you can and cannot see, what Missouri Department of Natural Resources can and cannot say, who is to say that they are not tampering with wells, that they are not making the data invaluable because they are messing with it? That is I don't trust these people. They are here for nobody but themselves, and they're going to tout, oh, we're spending $100 million here, $300 million there. Boo-hoo, big deal. That is my question. How can you be sure about their data?
Yeah, it's a valid question. And the question is how can we, what guarantees do we have that the information they're providing us is accurate?
Correct.
And, you know, I can't give you that answer. I know that last month's data indicated...
Insulting that a company like that, where are you, Mr. Republic? I want to point you out, because I do not appreciate that you can play ball with the legal system and jerk our chain, and it doesn't mean a doggone thing to you. And you're going to hide what's for the wealth and fairness of this community.
And just for the record, that's Mike Sladek with St. Louis County Health
Who
Department.
is that man at? Whoever he is, I put my wrath on you. I am tired of this. This is absolutely abhorrent.
All I can tell you is the information we get, we go through. As far as it being manipulated or things like that, I can't comment on that.
I understand your position, but I can comment all that I want. Nobody's shackling my mouth.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, yeah, my question is sort of on the same line as hers, which is when I heard you speak about getting information in the event of some emergency release, and that you will be relying on Republic Services for that, and I share your concern. I guess the next train of thought is that can you, and I know that the state has already hired an independent consultant to analyze and has provided information that is in contradiction with Republic. How is it that you expect to protect a community if you're not able to procure independent data and share that with the community? Because all of this planning for contingency events, if it's all predicated on the source of information coming from those who stand the least to gain about it getting out accurately, then I don't know how this is really reassuring or planning effective safety Do you understand? mean,
No,
it's sort of the
I
same
do
nature.
understand the question,
What you're
and,
saying.
you know,
What can you do and what
I think
political
the
influence?
answer to that question is that that's some of the information that has been passed back and forth with the Attorney General. It's on their to-do list, if you will, is to get a third party to come in and do the sampling. You know, one of the biggest problems is these wells become ineffective sometimes. Sometimes the pumps go out, they get watered in. So as they fill up with leachate, which is the juice that's created in the landfill, they're not actually functioning correctly. So and that happens, and they tell us that happens quite often. They go in and replace it. But if that particular day that this well is full of water, and they go out and do a reading for a data collection, your data is going to be really low because it's not able to suck the gas through. So it goes back to your question, how do we guarantee? I think the only guarantee that we have is a future issue brought up by the Attorney General through a lawsuit or through meetings and negotiating with them that we can get a third party to come in and do that testing. Now I know that the DNR has been on site during some of that information gathering. I can't tell you if they're there all the time or not. I'm not there. So it's hearsay anyway, what I'm telling you, but what I've been told is that the DNR's folks have been at the landfill on days that they have done sampling. So, you know, and there's people at the DNR that I trust wholeheartedly that they're in the right place, they're doing it for the right reasons. And to be honest with you, if I could tell you, I know at least one person there who's in a good spot. You know, she is just as strong and committed to this community as what I am and what Todd Valhammer is. And that's good to know because there's a lot of bureaucracy that happens and you guys all know it. And you know, unfortunately, this company gets to people and somebody that says one thing this week says the exact opposite next week. It's just all a matter of when they've talked to somebody or somebody has influenced their decision making. So it's a political issue. There's no doubt about it. I mean, that's the unfortunate thing, and somebody here already said it. It's also about their bottom line. You know, that's not me saying that. That's people's opinion. But there's a lot of it that goes into the decision making that influences how much they spend. So, you know, it is what it is.
The Attorney General knows that. The questions that you're raising, that you both raised, we raised at that meeting as well. You know, this is a political game. This is a really, really messy chess game. There's a lot of dirty politics in this. And that's why we had the League of Women Voters out here. You guys, it's very hard not to stand up here talking to you guys and play politics because I was so angry this morning it made me throw away a fresh cup of coffee. I thought I was boiling at 9 o'clock in the morning. If I drink this cup of coffee, I'm going to vibrate out of this house. It's hard because you're right, your life is being manipulated by politics and by dirty, dirty money. Never forget that. Come to these meetings and fight. Write your emails, make your phone calls.
Yeah, what Dawn said. But the reason I jumped up here was because I can say this and I can't because I'm a radical environmentalist, and that's to ask your elected officials and agencies to remove Republic services from the influential decision-making processes that are taking place at this landfill. For the isolation barrier, if you read through the Corps of Engineers review of the isolation barrier, they say plain clearly that a part of the length and duration of this is because of the exchange between the federal government and Republic services about designs, about protocol, about what should be done. If Republic services is removed, it cuts some of that time out. And in my opinion, we get better and accurate information. And the only way that that's going to happen is if you pressure the federally elected officials. Sorry, you're the only one here, Lou. But that's going to come from them. They've written letters, thankfully. That's a big prop to them, twice. Bipartisan, Democrats and Republicans. Letters to EPA Region 7 putting the pressure on them. Senator McCaskill, a year and a half, 2 years ago, when we approached her with these issues, before you guys were coming to these meetings, thought the EPA was doing a fine job. That has changed. And that's a really big thing that everybody here should be happy about, is that she realizes, that people in her office realize, that this is not an issue that's under control, that they need to leverage their power as federally elected officials to make the EPA do what you guys want. So keep that up. That's really important. And Republic needs to be removed from the decision-making process on the radioactive wastes too, because the way Superfund is set up is that same way with this isolation barrier. They're in charge of writing all these documents about what should be done, what's the preferred option, to cap it and leave it. That's what they want. It's the cheapest option there is. But they're still citing these risk figures for removal based on a record of decision that had no risk assessment for a smoldering fire contacting radioactive waste, regardless if it's this fire now or some fire in the future. They're citing these risk assessments, and it's not accurate to say that, say some of the things that they are saying. And lastly, I was just shared a story that was posted by the Post-Dispatch today before this meeting. Republic Services hired a contractor to assess what's going on at the smoldering fire, and their conclusion was that the smoldering fire is not in the neck of the landfill, that it's not moving north towards the radioactive material, which according to Todd Thalhammer is wildly incorrect. If the fire is in the neck of the landfill, that means when we started this a year and a half ago, there was time to excavate the neck of the landfill and do this fire barrier there. That's not an option now because of the heat in the neck of the barrier. So I find Republic Services' most recent claim, I look forward to reading the report, to be a bit dubious.
I have not seen that report, but I can tell you this, you can drive on Monaco Road right here, and you can see the neck of the landfill, and you can see that it's about 40 feet shallower than what it was a year and a half ago. And I'm not an engineer, but I've been doing this a long time. I've been a firefighter for 23 years now. And the void spaces created by this smoldering event as this thing settles down, and I shouldn't say settle down, but as it settles into the ground, the whole landfill sinks. So to say that the fire is not in the neck of the landfill, I completely disagree based on data and based on visual assumptions.
Real quick to Representative Otto, we've come up a little bit and talk about the airport. It's kind of important real quick that you guys know that the airport's playing kind of a role in the timetable of the barrier. You know, they're worried about birds, bird mitigation. Representative Otto can tell you just a little bit more, because that's an area that I don't know much about, but I know it weighs heavily on the minds of the Attorney General and everybody involved.
How do I just come up a little bit? I actually talked to the airport director today. I worked in Lambert Airport for 20 years. I'm air traffic controller for 31 years. Bird activity and bird strikes is a very, very serious event, and every airport has to be concerned with it, and they all are. But the fact of the matter is, I worked at Lambert when they had airplanes. I got there in the mid-80s when TWA was buying Ozark, and it was in its heyday. And we worked with that as an active landfill, and we never had a problem with bird activity. Now, when they built the new runway, of course, it becomes within the 10,000 foot of the landfill now, and of course, they have some say. I did talk to her today. It's my goal not to disparage the airport. It's my goal not to get into a public argument if I can. But believe me, there is nothing involved with the airport, especially with the traffic levels they have today, to be able to say that they have to do anything in regard to not allowing or somehow saying the community doesn't have its rights to be protected simply so Southwest Airlines can get two departures off this afternoon. It's not going to happen. I worked there when they built the runway. I worked there when the airports are always under construction. There are always problems, believe me. There's always a plan on the way to do this. And the way I think the best way to do it is for the airport to insist, if they want, one thing I think the airport's worried about, cost. Republic will bear the cost. You can do it several ways. You can do it at night. You can do it on weekends. Weekend traffic is low. You can do it, you can put an inflatable building over it. There's all kinds of ways. The best way to get Republic to understand or to give up and start doing it is to drive the cost to the point where they're going, wait a minute, it's going to cost us more and more the longer we wait, the more we argue with this. But the airport is here to serve the community. The community does not serve the airport. I think it's important that we understand that and we keep that in mind.
Are there any more questions, any more comments?
I just have kind of a dumb question. You kept saying that it's dirty politics, and they said that in the last meeting I was here. I mean, and then you say the public hires their own knowledgeable experts, and then EPA hires theirs, and then they all just agree or say what, like just what the chief said about that it's not in the bottleneck or the whatever, but it is. What is the dirty politics going on? That's why I don't understand. I thought, doesn't someone have in charge? And also, is there another fire that's ever been like this anywhere in the United States that they can learn from? Or is this only like, is this the first time it's ever happened in the United States of America?
There are lots of landfill fires that are bad. The public tends to own those landfills. There's one in Ohio, countywide Ohio, that's been burning for a decade plus. It's a different type of fire, but doesn't have near the bad waste, not just radioactive waste, but it doesn't have, a lot of the benzene. It's an aluminum oxide fire. But the thing, and I'm going to tie it together with the dirty politics. When Karen and I, when we first got involved in this, a year and a half ago, the first thing we did is Google countywide Ohio. I would encourage you all to do this. They have a community group kind of like us. They call themselves Club 3000. And it's actually headed by the pastor of a church there. Really, really nice guy. But we talked to him for maybe 2 hours, and then we kept in contact. And the first thing he told us, he said, I gotta tell you, he said, they hurt us and they hurt us bad. Environmentally, they hurt us economically, their housing value is just gone. People are getting sick. There have been people there with leukemia that have settled with the company. Okay, this fire over there has been burning for 10 plus years. There are people there sick with leukemia, a little 2-year-old boy, maybe one of them. And he said, despite all that, it's not even just that. And then he started to cry. He said, now I hope I don't cry. He said, they hurt us spiritually. He said, they tore our community apart. They bought our school board. They bought our Sunday school teachers, our Sunday school superintendents, the pastors of our churches. They played dirty politics, went behind the scenes, bought people, mayors, city councils. He said in a smaller community, and we're in St. Louis County, we're a much bigger community than they are. In that community, he said, somebody buys a new car, you know what's going on. And he said, the worst thing that they ever had happen, he said, and then I guess it's amazing, they're all very spiritual. He said in church, as the pastor, he said he had a group of people approach him, got up in front of the entire congregation, which is pretty much the whole community, and apologized to them. Admitted to taking money and apologized. These people that got up there, they were the pillars of their community. Again, these were Sunday school superintendents. These people resigned. These people that the community had come to look to had accepted a bribe. And at least they had the decency to admit it, apologize. But this company played horrible. And right now behind the scenes, you've got, we mentioned the Coalition to Keep Us Safe. That is a lobby group. It is a mom by the name of Molly Teichman, who is hired by Republic Services. You can look it up on the Post this past. God love Blythe Bernhardt. Blythe got a hold of her, and they've got a list of people that support them because they're worried that this will be hauled through their backyard and they'll get sick from this. This company is going behind the scenes and telling people in rural Missouri that have nothing to do with here, you don't want them removing this waste. You don't want them removing this because it'll get hauled by train and will spill off the train tracks into your community. As Ed mentioned earlier, FoosRec has a wonderful track record, and little do they know, little do these people know that FoosRec's been moving it out for what, Kay? A decade plus without incident. It's already happening. This stuff is being moved out of St. Louis.
Well, that's what I'm asking. I mean, when I live in California, radioactive material is moved all the time, and I don't know if it was the same organization, because it was like 25 years ago.
That's
But
right.
I mean, it was talk, you know, with the, we had that 100%, you know,
But
good
here-
rates or whatever.
Right.
But I guess being an optimist I am, I gotta, you know, I thank God that we have people here that
That's right.
represent us, from the chief to, you know, represent Otto, but I mean, I guess when we write letters, who's the best person to call besides the ones we already
I
have?
can put the list out.
I gotta believe somebody's gotta be honest.
Oh, we've got really good, oh, we do, we've got
I mean,
really
do the
great
right
people.
thing for not just us, but
Right.
my friend lives in St. Charles, and they're not really radical. I guess they're considered radical too, because they have their meetings and they're getting educated on it. It's like if there is an event, what's it, we say it's gonna stop at the stop sign in Bridgeton.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So St. Charles has worked up about this too, Joe.
Well, and they should be. I mean, you heard what Mr. Diedrich and what Matt Levanchi said. The problem is that, again, this is a lobby group. What they're doing is they're in Jeff City. A lot of them are with the Republican Party. We can get you their names that support this group. The fastest way to shut them up, and I'm going to be honest, if you ever encounter one or you want to call some of these politicians that support it, say, yeah, but do you support AMRAP? Okay, you don't want radioactive waste from West Lake moving through your community, but do you support the Callaway County Power Plant? Because that's high-level radioactive waste, and that will eventually be moving out too. It's the hypocrisy of the whole thing. This is Republic's way of buying politicians and starting this so that we don't get the solution of removal. They don't want to have to remove it, whether that's because it's the most expensive. I'm not even going to go there. For me, I think you guys just heard the emergency plan and what would happen if the two met. I can't imagine cleaning up all of St. Louis County and having to decontaminate the whole thing is less expensive than removing this waste. I think, in terms of the area with the Attorney General, they are trying to find a spot. They really are. We can't, like Mr. Levanchi said, we can't let this fire hit this radioactive waste. They don't even know the extent of the waste. They're trying to find it. When push comes to shove, maybe they do, in an emergency situation, have to remove it. I don't know. I don't have those answers. But I got to tell you, there's one agency who specializes in this specific type of waste, and that's the Army Corps of Engineers food scrap program. They're the ones that need to have this landfill, and whatever happens, happens. But they're the experts. They're the best surgeon that we have to look at this cancer that is up here on this landfill and figure out what to do with it. So.
Everything you said about Republic is true. And it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody in this room. Corporations, when you stand to make money by being untruthful and lying, are always going to do that. That's, you know, criminals commit crimes. Not to indict every corporation, but the problem you have is the agencies that oversee them. So you need to make sure you focus on the right enemy. I don't like Republic Services. I don't like what they do to communities. They're not unique in any way, shape, or form. But your problem is Region 7.
Yeah.
If you've got an EPA who's overseeing a criminal enterprise and isn't doing anything about it, that's where you need to put your pressure. And I know you guys know this. Dawn, you and I have talked repeatedly about our shared experiences with Region 7. And your congressional effort is where, for my money, is where you will do the most good for the greater community. As many have pointed out, this isn't just a North County issue. This impacts the entire area, the regional area. I mean, it's a blight on our entire existence here. So for my money, it's the congressional effort that needs to really go into play. And there should be no amount of security for those who fund EPA, that would be Congress, and the administration that gives them their authority. There should be no wiggle room for them at all. And there should be a strategic campaign to put political pressure. You have won, in my opinion, the scientific argument. You've got a consent decree that doesn't even address the true risks. So on a technical, scientific argument, you've won that. But you're in a public relations battle, and you're in a political battle. And your political battle is not with Republic. You'll never win. You should be aware of them infiltrating your community and infiltrating this meeting in groups, and I'm sure they have. But you need to target the federal agency that is responsible for them allowing to continue this harmful behavior. And I know you know that, but the community needs to hear it.
I agree. With that note, one of the things that we do, again, I'm going to go back to this. You guys, it doesn't take 200 phone calls. It takes 10. What we've done is we've created sign-up sheets. Are they in the front or the back? Are they both? Up here, you know, what we're asking you to do, we've got magnets out in front. We're asking you guys to sign up for one senator, whichever one you want. Or if you want to do both, you can do both. And just send him an email, make a phone call, and tell him what it is you want. I think right now what we're asking for is we're asking for a food scrap. We're asking for them to write legislation and get the Army Corps of Engineers, the St. Louis Army Corps of Engineers, in here up at this site. I think that's what.
No, we're done.
Oh, I'm done.
One other thing I think we ought to do, and I've seen it done by other groups, we should have at least one or two editorials in the paper every week. You all should write, and sometimes they should be emotional. Just make it emotional. Said, how would you like to live next to this? How would you like to live within 2 miles? If so-and-so thinks that it ought to stay here, then let them come by my house a mile from the landfill. But editorials are a real powerful thing. If everybody would start writing these letters, we get these letters in weekly. The Post-Dispatch has actually done this group a lot of good because they put in good articles and good editorials. We need to back that up with personal responses, you know, because you see it. I mean, that's what I read in the paper more than anything is the editorial section. And if you read those letters, some of them are only this big.
Yes.
And they are, and the bells, I'll tell you right now, you ought to have one in there every week. You ought to be writing it every week. Live in my house, live in my shoes, before you tell me that you want this stuff stay here because some representative from Sedalia puts in he's the guy that is put in a resolution to keep it here in St. Louis. Okay? And that's where all of that, it is dirty, but it's horrible politics. I had never thought that a lobbyist group or a company would want to subject the community to what they're being subjected to simply so they can save money. They bought this place, they have to live with it. But I'm telling you, editorials are a powerful thing, and I'd really like to see more of those put in if we get a chance. Sorry.
If they remove the landfill material, will it go to a place like Sedalia so it's easy? I'm being really asking him because is he fighting for his constituents, saying, because you know, they're going to say, oh, let's take it out of Bridgeton, but we're going to move it to a subdivision next to the village. Well, I'd be on that side, I'm going to fight with them too. You know, we got to want my representative to look out for me, so I'm just asking, is that why you're getting the nastiest down there? Is that where they're thinking about putting it?
No. This is just some guy that got a check from the fellow.
Yeah, but I mean,
No, there are federal side sanctioned for radioactivity, like what is at West Lake Landfill.
well, I want you all, if I live in Sedalia, that was coming out there by the truckload.
Train.
People moving it out there. Those people would want you guys.
They're moving it by train and they literally have caps, lids that go on these
I just wonder
cars.
where it would be moved if it did get.
No, there's a site in Idaho and a site in Utah that have agreed in principle to accept the radioactive waste from West Lake Landfill. So there's a site that is, 2 sites that are willing to take it, that are designed to control these radioactive materials much more so than this site, which was not designed to do that. And just to piggyback on Don's support of the Army Corps of Engineers, is that this can be a congressional action. Congressman Clay's office has been helpful here, but we need to introduce legislation. Let's get it on the books. This has been done before. Congressman Murtha in Pennsylvania, who's pretty powerful, one of those gerrymandered districts in the country, but he helped get a site transferred to food director legislation. Congressman King, a Republican in New York, similarly was able to get a site transferred to FUSRAP. Sites that were radioactive landfills have been cleaned up by FUSRAP. There's a spot called Spack Landfill in Massachusetts where the Corps came in, FUSRAP, and removed the radioactive materials from a landfill. It has been done before, it can be done before. We've seen the EPA mess up sites, like Shattuck in Colorado, where they decided to basically bury in place radioactive material that was along a river. A couple years later, they found out that it was escaping, so they had to go spend more money to remove it. The right thing ought to be done to begin with. The timeline for this isolation barrier, I know that Chief Levanti thinks we need it. I think we do too, but we also need the radioactive waste out. The timeline and the possibility of this fire moving may not match up. So anyway, you get food wrap in charge. There are a host of benefits that come with that. You remove public services largely from the decision-making processes. That's humongous. That's what we want to see happen. They can pay for it in the end as well, just like Superfund, but with less influence over what happens. And this is the same company that had its contractors submit a report to EPA in January that said there is no environmental or health impact if a smoldering fire reaches the radioactive material. That was debunked by the Office of Research and Development within the EPA, the Department of Natural Resources, and the Department of Health and Senior Services here in Missouri. This is the type of bogus material that Republic Services puts out there. We asked EPA Region 7 if, because of something like this, such an egregious conclusion would mean that EMSI, Republic Services contractor, should be fired, for lack of a better term. And they said, we see no reason why EMSI needs to go. This is the contractor that has been working at this landfill for a very long time. Told us that 40 picocuries per liter of radium in the groundwater is background. Really looking forward to seeing what the USGS thinks is background, and we'll see if that's another thing that EMSI tried to distort or just blatantly lie about. So we need Republic Services, EMSI, they need to go. We need the federal government in here calling the shots and being responsible to you guys.
Days or months there were, and I haven't heard anything about that recently. Is that just like an old theory now?
The interceptor wells are what is stalling the fire. That was what would happen if the fire was just allowed to go and move north, and that was also based on, remember they thought that it was only sitting at the top of the landfill, the radiation. Now we know that it's spread throughout, and we don't even know all those places. They're still trying to find all the little spots. So right now, like Chief Levanti said, it's stalled in the neck. It's not moving past, but they want to keep it there. They want to stall it. You know, it was Todd Bauhammer's opinion that those wells wouldn't last forever, that this was basically a stall tactic. It was there to stall the fire. He really insisted last year that a barrier be put in the neck area. You know, we've been hearing this barrier talked about for a long time, and like the chief said, we don't have the option now of putting it in the neck because that's where the fire is. Contrary, I guess, to a Post-Dispatch article that's out now from Republic.
So it sounds like, is it just me, or is it like, it feels like we're turning, like it's not just about education now, like it's,
I know where you're going. It's very frustrating because I think the moms too, and a lot of the people in this room, we thought that that's all we have to do. We thought, okay, there's mistakes that have been made, we're just going to have to point out the mistakes, and naively people would be like, oh my gosh, it's a mistake. Okay, we're going to fix it. That's not what we're seeing happen. We're getting, if anybody's been at the CAD meeting, those are some of the most frustrating meetings you'll ever go to in your life. Because all they do is stand up here and we hammer them. You made a mistake, you made this. Well, yes, we did. Yes, we did. Well, fix them. What does that mean? It's not, so it's stalled on the congressional level. At this point, we're asking for a whole different team to be brought in because it's part of the process. It's the back and forth of data that's going back and forth. This is getting ridiculous. Now they have their own fire expert that's going to contradict the states. And then there's that. This is ridiculous. We need one agency, we need the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. There are Corps of Engineers, a group of them. They have the ability to bring in who they need to come up here with the fire and with the graphics.
And this is a problem from 1990 from the Department of Energy when they had FUSRAP. So this needs to be fixed at the federal level, congressionally, because the Department of Energy didn't want to be the piggy bank that cleaned up West Lake Landfill. So they basically wrote one sentence into a 1990 agreement about what would be FUSRAP in St. Louis and said West Lake doesn't count. And then 2 months later, it became an EPA Superfund site. And then EPA Superfund has gone broke over the years and has to rely on the public services and the other responsible parties to pay for the cleanup.
What does that mean, it doesn't count? I don't understand what that means.
They knew it'd be a problem.
They knew that it was going to be a financial issue and wrote West Lake Landfill out of sites in St. Louis contaminated with nuclear weapons, radioactive waste to be cleaned up under FUSRAP. There's one sentence in this 1990s document that says vicinity properties of Laddie Avenue, where this stuff came from, with the exception of West Lake Landfill. They literally carved West Lake Landfill out of being a FUSRAP site in 1990.
Okay. Go ahead, Daniel. Okay. Go ahead. When Kay's finished here, it's 8:20, so we're going to wrap this up. We have some last minute announcements to go over here, and then we're going to get out of here. So hold on just 1 second.
We've been trying to say, there were citizens who have met almost for 40 years now saying they want Westlake cleaned up. They've been cleaning up all the sites except Westlake. No one said ignore Westlake. That's just not correct. So if everyone here would say we want the radioactive waste excavated from Westlake, if that would be a message that all of North County is saying, it would be helpful. Make it real clear, we are having, the Corps of Engineers has been doing a good job cleaning up all our other sites, dozens of sites. And we just need to say, take the radioactive waste out, because the Corps of Engineers can do it safely. They know how to do things like worry about mine explosions and things like that. If we all have the same message, remove the radioactive waste, that's what we have to do.
We also still need to pull the ticket for the gas card. Oh, it was Barb. I just saw her leave. Okay. Should we? Another one? I totally saw her. Oh, okay, so it's Barb. Before you guys leave, we have a couple things, sign-up sheets up front, and we need to get these chairs filled. I mean, every month I cannot believe that these chairs are not filled and people are not outraged. Donna, I'm stealing your line from Facebook. We should be outraged. We've got to spread the word. We need volunteers. One thing I'm doing, we're doing a color sheet. It sounds kind of silly, but it's to get the kids involved. If you want one, you can come get one from me. I'll be at the front desk. And the color sheet has a picture of kids playing on the playground, and it says remove the radioactive waste or remove us. There's a spot to put the kid's age and a little note like Johnny wishes he could play outside, but he can't because it stinks. Whatever, however the kid's affected. I'm going to try to get 50 of them, so if anybody has kids or grandkids that you can, we're going to get 50 together and send them to Congress or elected officials. Maybe they'll listen to the kids. Another thing, we're going to do a bake sale. If you want to sign up to donate baked good items. You can sign up on the sign-up sheet. Another idea is attachments on Halloween candy to promote our November meeting. If anybody wants to meet up with me one night, or anyone just wants to donate candy, and we can put November's date and community meeting info on it, we can hand it out to the adults or the kids on Halloween. We gotta get the chairs filled.
Really what she said, you guys just heard from St. Louis County, you heard from the fire chief, so really serious situation, you know, especially I know you guys don't like the whole stay in place thing, that makes me nervous too, but in order to do that, or in order to do anything that happens in this landfill, people need to know there's a problem. If people don't know there's a problem and there is a situation, it's gonna be hard to get people to understand and to stay safe, no matter what that looks like. So, thank you guys. Oh, hang on.
Just one more thing, as you know, Bill Otto has been extremely supportive of this community and allowed me also to put in all the effort. That I believe has been very helpful. Everyone will agree with that. We are having a community walk in support of Bill, who is up for re-election this year. On October 11th, we'll be posting. We would love to have you guys come out and show your support for Bill supporting you. Thank you.
Please, please, please sign up for the Lotus Gives event. I can't stress that enough. It will be very informational and it will be a great, great meeting to be at.